Okay, should be live. Just that.
Sophia is the one she just, I think, tried to see if she could get on.
Okay, looks good.
You might have to call them, I don't know. They're in the enrollment book, which is right here. We'll give them time. You want to call them or not yet? I think we should probably call them. It's Margot Holler and Sophia Blassie.
Give it a second. We'll probably come out. Chelsea.
So it's Sophia Blassie, B-L-A,
And who else?
and Margot Holler. Yeah, Sophia went on earlier.
Yeah.
But yeah, you want to give her a call?
Yeah, let me get the phone.
Thanks.
Which stream do you need? But they're not here yet. Sophia's here.
Oh, hi, Sophia. Oh, thanks, Scott, very much. We'll wait for her. There's one other girl, so thank you so much. Good news about you singing at the pirate game. I'm impressed. Oh, it's the Steeler game. Wow, that's even better, I think.
Hi, is Margot available? This is Jim from the SAT class. It's just Jim from the SAT class. Wondering if you're able to get online. Are you taking the online today? Oh, okay. Are you able to comment in the chat room? Okay, yeah. Whenever you get a chance. Sorry. Mrs. Hessler just asked me to call a couple students. Thank you. Bye.
She's logging in still.
Okay, thank you, Jim.
Yep.
The dad is singing the Star Spangled Banner at the Steeler game.
Wow.
In a couple weeks, so.
Very cool.
I thought it was the pirate. Oh, hi, Margot. I'm glad you're here. So you'll just be able to see us. I'm Mrs. Hessler. It's good you're here. Our thunderstorm is pretty much over, but if that ever happens again, it's just you two girls today. If we lose the stream, just come back in 5 minutes. So I'd like you to write down, this is the address to take the test. And so you'll sign up for this test on October, and we end right before the October 2nd deadline. So our class is actually Saturdays 2 to 5 and Tuesday evening 5:30 to 8:30. So each class is 3 hours. We give you a little break in the middle. Okay, so for today, in the bottom of your, and actually to encourage you, we get the same results with the online as we do the live class, surprisingly, because we did that all through COVID. So you have to get out your blue book, which is in the bottom of your box, the orientation packet, which looks sort of like this. I'm just holding it up. I know there's a little lag. And the heart of Algebra 1, we'll be doing it a little bit in your pencil and calculator. So we'll be doing, today is just sort of an orientation and then a start of Algebra 1. So just to go over some basics, so you know with the SAT, you get a 2 to 800 score in math and in reading. And so a perfect score is obviously 1600. 500 is average. So that's getting half the questions right. And if you got half the questions right at school, it wouldn't be a good test, right? But here, half right gets you into a good college. I should say, you can get into college with an average score of 500. Every question on the test, and if you have any questions, just put them in this chat room. I'm Mrs. Hessler. I've been doing this for 25 years plus, but I get excited because where can I make a difference in a student's life like I can here? Every question is 10 points. So say you have a 500 math score and you want a 610 math score. It looks Herculean, but it's only 10 questions. And what happened was they changed the Common Core they changed the test to the Common Core. And so the test is very predictable in math and pretty much in the reading. So with the reading, 1/3 of it is grammar. And we're going to be going over all the rules. You know, the class is Saturdays 2 to 5 online and Tuesday evenings 5:30 to 8:30. If you ever have to miss a class, we save it online so you can go back and see it if you need to. Okay, a couple more housekeeping things. So to give you an idea, like I said, so 1,000 would be an average score with math and reading combined. Penn State and Pitt main campuses are looking something between a 550 and a 650. And a lot of colleges predicate their scholarships on SAT scores. So for the math, so in other words, I know Duquesne and all the Catholic schools actually give you $2,000 a year for a 1,200. And my eldest son, who can't actually do math, got into the honors college at Penn State, which saved his tuition. And so the honors college, just so you have an idea, they're usually looking for a $1,350 total. But that's half tuition, and I promised I'd give him a car, and I was good on my promise. It was a used car after he graduated. But so another thing to mention is super score. And if you see that on a college application, that means they're taking the best reading and the best math from 2 separate tests. So just wondering, is Sophia actually here in person, or is it still her dad? Just wondering. We got a good dad here who's online learning the SAT again. So anyway, when they say super score, that means they're taking the best math and the best reading from more than one test. But we're getting ready for October 2nd. Oh, good, Sophia. I'm glad it's you. Not that I didn't appreciate your dad, but okay. So the math goes from easy to hard. So the first 10 problems, there will be no traps. But as you go up, the questions get harder and harder. So right around here, there'll be shark-infested waters. You'll hear Jaws music, because this is where the difficult ones are, right at the end. There's no essay anymore, so that's exciting. A couple more things just before we dive in. So if you have your blue book, we're just going through an overview of the class. So get out this packet, okay? And it's a scholastic assessment test. It's not an intelligence test. It's a test of reading, writing, and math skills that you've acquired in school. Consequently, preparation can significantly improve your score. I'm going to ask you both, have you both had Algebra 2? Because that's the only requirement. I love to tell you what you don't need to know on the test. So if you've had Algebra 2, just say yes or something. I've had Algebra 2 or something. Okay, so Sophia's had it. And Margot, have you had Algebra 2? Because that's the only thing you need. I know a lot of people are in higher. Okay, great. So that's all you need to have is Algebra 2. The colleges don't know what an A is from Upper St. Clair compared to Mount Lebanon. So they use the SAT score to winnow kids out. So for example, at Penn State, where my 4 kids went, they just do 2/3 your grades and 1/3 your SAT score, and there's no essay. So it's very predictable. As I said, we get the same results online. So let's look at the PSAT. I forget, are you guys in 11th grade or 12th? If you could just tell me, that would help me out, because maybe I don't have to do PSAT. If you're in 11th grade or 12th grade, just write it in. I can't be a news. Okay, so Sophia's in 11th.
Is that October they give that?
Yeah, they give it in October. So Sophia, you're getting ready. Oh, you're both in 11th. Okay, so that's awesome because you're getting ready for the SAT and the PSAT. And you're going to hit it out of the park and be done. Okay, so the PSAT is 165 minutes. It'll seem like a baby test after this course. So you're actually preparing for both. My son James, who teaches the math here, or the English here, I'm sorry, he was a National Merit finalist and he graduated from Penn State in English Phi Beta Kappa. I've certified in math and English, although I'm retired from Mount Lebanon, but this is my real passion. Okay, to help kids with their future. So there's 4 sections on the SAT. It's a little longer than the PSAT. So the good news is you have 5 passages to read in 65 minutes. So next weekend, over Labor Day, we're going to be asking you to take a test at home. There's no sense me being online and saying start and stop. Maybe somebody can time you at home. And you can get your own pacing down. Like you'll know, I'm a little rushed in the no calculator, but I'm fine in grammar. So the good news is you have about 13 minutes a passage. So I told the kids that were going in today to the test, a lot of my students went into today, you can't take a smartwatch. You could take a regular watch and you'll know with the reading how you're doing. You know, usually kids have time to finish, but you can say, okay, like they go in and it's 8:10 and you know you have 65 minutes. So you could add 65 and say, okay, I'll be done. I have until 9:15 to finish this. On the ACT, it's much more cramped with time. You have to read 4 passages in 35 minutes, which is almost impossible because it's only 9 minutes a passage. So that's one reason we like the SAT. And like I said, this is just a overview. So here's the score. I told you that the average is about 500. And that's getting half the questions right. And I went over the super score thing. I didn't know Jim had it. And lots of scholarships are offered based on your SAT score. So the SAT is given in these months: Why do we have these asterisks? Because on those test dates, you can see your entire test for $18. So they have to, because of a proof and test, testing law, they have to put out 3 tests so you see the results. So for $18, it's worth it if you sign up for the October test to pay the additional $18, and you'll get your entire test back online. And that helps us as test preparers because we have these tests. Students, they're online, and I might give you March and May before we complete this, right before your SAT. So, and that's about the $18 issue. Okay, because there's a time constraint on the test, you have to know how to manage your time. So don't read the directions on test day. Regular math problems should be solved in a minute. And what's good about this class is you're going to be, a lot of the questions will look like old friends. And so you'll be able to answer them in under 15 seconds, a lot of questions. That's the whole thing. I'm not teaching you new math. I'm just familiarizing you with exactly how they're going to phrase the questions, which is a little different than your math teachers. There's no guessing penalty on the SAT anymore, so answer every question. So if at the end your boyfriend is Carl, just put C's. Like if you know the time is coming to a close, you can get 1/4 of the answers correct, or pick B for Bob. Okay, we're going to 3 diagnostic tests we're going to take. One is next weekend, and so I'd like you to write this down. Next weekend, I put bubble sheets in your box. It's hard to write on this because it's a vertical tablet. So bubble sheets are in your box, 3 sets. So if you would write this down, next weekend, you're going to be taking test 3. All of these are legitimate College Board tests. So it's on page 1084. So we would like you to take test 3, put the answers in the bubbles, and then mail it to this address, Chris Hessler. And we'll analyze it for you and send it back. Nobody sees these scores. They're just a way for you to monitor your own practice, because we give them back in about a week, and you can go through the tests and see what you missed and what the answers are. So you don't go into the Super Bowl without taking some scrimmages. So we like you to do 3 scrimmages with us. And so then we'll analyze it and see where you're strong and where you're weak. So if you would just write this down, and you can take it any time this week. Take it when you're fresh. Like I'm thinking next Saturday, if you don't have anything going on, you could sleep in a little bit, get up around 10, take test 3, maybe have somebody time you. We need it to be timed, or you could time yourself, and then just mail the bubble sheets to us. It's not official at all. So I hope there's no questions on that. Okay, so we have all the lessons we mailed to you already in your box. Okay, so the math test, there's one section without a calculator and one section with. So that's important when you take your test, to sort of obey the rules you have to face on test day. Like I said, it's just a scrimmage. So here's the directions, which are the same for both, and they give you this many formulas, but there's about 8 more that they don't give you on the test. And you say, what? You know, and so we show you those formulas in our program. So they don't give you the quadratic formula, the circle on a coordinate plane, or any of that. But this is what you'll see on test day for the formulas. On the ACT, they don't give you any formulas. So the graded questions, look at this page. So I don't want you to read this page on test day. That would take you about 30 seconds. You're going to go to pay money, the first question. So, you know how to, you don't get points for putting the answer up here, but we suggest you do it. You have to put the graphite in the oval for it to count. A couple other rules. If you have something like 2.5, you can't put it in like this because the computer now in New Jersey will read it as 21 halves. So you have to put it in either as 5 halves or 2.5 for it to count. And they've been pretty good with the test, so I'm sure if you take it October 2nd, you're going to get your results in 3 weeks. And because you're juniors, you have a lot of cushion time. Like, you'll be rolling into the PSAT the 3rd week in October. By then, you should have your SAT score. So you guys are being very smart doing this now, not in June when you have all your finals and you're really rushed. Also, another thing is when you have a repeating decimal, you should put in either the fraction. If you have a repeating decimal, that's legal. You have to take it out. If it repeats, you have to take it out 3 places. So for example, for 2/3, you could have 0.666, or they will also accept 0.667. And also notice that there's no negatives, no pi, so you can't have a negative answer ever. And some answers will be like, they might take 2, 6, and 8, but you only put in the one answer you got. And that's why we take the practice test, so that you get very used to the test. Okay, also any fraction you probably would have to reduce. Like if it's 4/10, you could put it in as 0.4 or 2/5. Okay, so let's dive in. So you can't enter negative numbers ever, radicals, or imaginary complex numbers. Most of the right answers on the gradient will be integers. So we have been on top of this. This is about where the content is. There's very little geometry anymore, but it is on the test. So instead of doing a 400-page geometry book, we have 2 packets that will cover all the geometry you need to know. So every question on the test you will have seen with us. Plus we like to, here's the list of things, but we're going to go over all this. You don't have to know all the trig identities. You pretty just much need to know SOHCAHTOA, which I'm sure you've had. And like I said, we've seen an average of about, our average is about 100 points in math and 60 points in reading. So this is all the list of stuff, but our job is to show you. So let's go to question 1. Here's our first strategy, which is not cheating. It's to pick a number. And you're going to hear me say this a lot. So on a very hard algebra question, I've had kids that even use this strategy in school, and you can't quite see it. You can pick a number. For example, the telephone call for a certain city is 50 cents for the first 2 minutes, and then 20 cents for each additional minute. So it says, whoops, and this is probably something you never tried in math before. Which of the following functions express the cost in dollars of a phone call that lasts for n minutes? So let's just say n is 5. You don't want to pick an exorbitantly high number, or you don't want to pick a fraction or anything. So what we do with this strategy, and we'll be showing you many more, because you can either go through the math door, or if the way the math teacher would do it, or you can use a strategy, and this will get you up probably 50 more points in math. So let's say our n is 5 minutes. So we know we have 5 minutes. The first 2 minutes are going to cost 50 cents. Then we have 3 minutes that are 20 cents each. So that's 60 cents. So we're taking this from the abstract world and bringing it down to concrete reality. So our call would be $1.10. And so we look at the answer now. We're putting in 5. I know that even on very, very hard math questions, you can use this strategy. So we put 5 in for n. That's $1. That's $1.10. So it must be B. This one would be $1.50. So we know B is the answer. And I didn't have to think that hard because I picked a number in the abstract algebra world. Okay. So let me just ask you, if you see the strategy, just type in the chat room, C strategy. Whoops. C strategy. Or just put CS. So I know you've got it. If you're still confused, it's just the two of you today, so this is great. So you're my math princesses. If you have a question, just put a question mark. But if you see it, just put CS. I know there's a time lag. We're going to be doing this strategy a lot. Okay, so Margot sees it. Thank you, sweetheart. And we're waiting for Sophia. If you have a question, let me know. It's just putting in a number for the n. And that makes it quicker. You don't have to think abstractly. Even if you use this as a monitor. Oh, thanks, Sophia. Okay, so we're going to be doing this strategy a lot. I'm going to be giving a lot of other strategies, but this is our first one. Now we're going to a pretty hard one. So, question 2 on the next page. The formula above gives the payment needed to pay a loan of D dollars. We're trying to get at R percent interest. Which of the following gives D? So always circle the prompt in terms of, we can cross that off. So this one looks pretty tricky, but we're just trying to get the D to stand alone. So I'm going to explain this slowly. So this term right here, we're just going to call A, and this term down here, we're just going to call B. So if I had P equals A over B times D, I would just multiply by the reciprocal. And so D would equal this B, which I'm going to put up here, so a lot of what I do with the math, I know you've had it, but I'm trying to demystify the questions. And A is going to go on the bottom. We're going to do a little bit more with this a little later today. And so the answer for this question would be C. So if you see 2, just put that in the chat room. If not, I'll go over it again. Basically, we're trying to get the D to stand alone. So we're going to multiply by this B term and then divide by the A term. So if you see 2, just put that in the chat room. If you have a question, just put a question mark, because not everybody sees the math initially. That's the problem. With reading, it's pretty easy, but with the math, and I did a lot of math when I got my math certification in my 40s with 4 kids, and so I know how it's difficult to sometimes see it. Oh, you both see it. Good. Let's try a book problem then. It's awesome. So we're going to go to page 1230 in the blue book. I like to do a lot of questions in your blue book because that's where then you're used to their actual, this is what they say is on the test. This is their what they put out there. So go to 1230. And try number 7 and just put your answer in the chat room. I am starting out with a relatively hard one. This time, we're trying to get the P to stand alone. And again, it looks like they're trying to confuse you. This is a no calculator one. So we're trying to get the P to stand alone. That in
the n minus 1 on the block. That first term is all to the n minus the 1.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right, just making sure.
And so you're trying to get this P to stand alone. And if you get it, just put the answer in the chat room. That in terms of, you can always just cross it off. You'll always get one of these on the test, and this one is pretty hard. I would say one of the hardest ones. But remember, this is your A, this is your B, and you just have to multiply by B and divide by A. And we've sort of demystified this question. So when you get an answer, no pressure, just put it in the chat room if you can. And if you're confused, just put a question mark. Great, Margot. I'm hoping I'm saying your name right, Margot. I don't pronounce the T, correct? Yay, Sophia got it too, and that's a hard one because I bring this up here and this down here. Great, so I don't, if you get one like this, which is a really, I often take you into the deep water. Yes, thank you, sweetheart. Because your frontal, I went to a seminar once and it said that your frontal lobes keep developing until 25. And so, whoops, I'm going to go to the packet. Okay, let's look at this one. This might confuse you as well. So this is just an orientation, but in the system of equations above, what value of C would result in infinitely many solutions? So infinitely many solutions means it's the same line. And we're going to go over this in depth on Tuesday night. So this math you've all had, it's just the way they present it. So we want this line to be the same as this line. So we have to sort of analyze the situation. Here, we're multiplying by 3. Here, we're multiplying by 3. So 48 times 3, C would be 144. So if you see 3, just put that in the chat room. So it's the same line. It's just that you have to sort of fly like an eagle above the problem. Because otherwise you might be struggling there. How do I get C? I can't even get A and B to distinctly. No worries. It's the same line. So just say C3 if you see it. Sorry. I could never be a news anchor because, thank you, Sophia, and thank you, Marco, because I keep itching my nose. I realize that. So let's try a really hard one in the book. I guess I'd have to learn. Okay, we're going to page 612, number 33. And this is a hard one, but you've already got the background to do it. And like I said, it's just that the questions on the SAT are presented in a different way than your math teacher presents them. So we're doing 612, number 33, which is hard because it's in the gridded section. So we have to come up with an integer, and we have x plus 2y is 10, and 3x plus 6y is c. So again, we're going to fly like an eagle. That's a bad eagle. Sorry. Won't even erase. That eagle is better, I guess. See what we multiplied everything by, and see if you can figure out what C is and put that in the chat room. Again, it's a little difficult if you've not seen one like this before. My eagles. Okay, I couldn't get that one erased. There it is. So you just have to see what you're multiplying by and what C would be. And just put the number in the chat room. Like I said, I like to do a lot of questions out of the book because that's College Board. They say that's what they're going to test you on. And so, yes. So Margot got it. Very good. For years, they said you couldn't prepare for this test. But now we know you can prepare. They're the biggest proponent of materials that you can prepare for the test. So we're looking to see what did we multiply x by to get 3x. It was times 3 times 3. So 10 times 3 would be 30. And we'll wait to see if Sophia sees it. It's just to get you comfortable because you probably didn't have a math teacher that presented it this exact way. But now you can do one of these. You just have to see what are they multiplying by each time. So to get x, to get 3x, you multiply by 3 from 2y to 6y. Good job, Sophia. So now what I'm talking about is these problems will become old friends, and you might get stymied on the test if you saw this right out of the gate, like, what am I supposed to do? But now you know the whole strategy behind it. Okay. That's why people usually get about 10 more questions right. So on the next page in the packet, if you have any questions, just let me know. This is all the stuff you need for problem solving and data analysis. So you don't need a course in statistics. Usually, probably both of you are in a higher math than what's required for the SAT. So our last class, the Tuesday before you go into your test, will be when we do our data and statistics lessons. So you have to know about standard deviation, but you don't have to calculate it. So we're going to go over all that. You don't need a statistics class. So we're just going to try a couple. So let's look at number 1. Whoa, I lost. Oh, there I go.
Is this the one you're working on?
Yes, I was zoomed out. Okay. So the circle graph above shows the proportion of pets per household surveyed. So there's 800 households surveyed. How many households had 2 or fewer pets? So a lot of probably 10,000 juniors would just pick the 2, but it's 2 or fewer. That's why it's good to read the graphs carefully. So the 2 pets are the straight lines, which would be 0.16. Then we have to worry about the 1 pet, which is polka dot. And then the 0 pets, which are the horizontal lines. And this will add up to be 0.77. This would be a calculator question. You just multiply it times the 800 households. And so you would get 616 people had 2 or fewer. But just a caution, if you're going to miss anything on the graph, it's probably a reading situation. Okay, let's try another one. Each point in the scatter plot above represents a different person's systolic and diastolic blood pressures. What fraction of the 16 people tested? So they're going to have a systolic pressure over 140. So I'm going to draw a line at 140. And a diastolic pressure over 90. Or both. Whoops, I wanted to just count that. So now I have to count the ones that are above and over. So it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I don't count this one twice because it says or both. So that would be 6 out of the 16 people. And here I have to reduce the fraction to 2 3/8. Thank you, College Board, for 10 points. Okay, one last one with statistics. And like I said, we're going to be going over all the statistics in a math lesson on the Tuesday before you take your test. So the graph above shows the distribution of the number of days spent on business trips. I need to get the median. And if you remember, the median is the middle number. So in middle school, they would have you write this out. You would write out 5 30s, because if the teacher keeps the kids busy in middle school, then the kids won't keep them busy. But you see this is taking somewhat of, it's okay to do it this way, but it's taking some time. So to streamline it, I could do, okay, there's 5 30s, plus there's 6 31s, plus 5 32s, plus 8 33s, plus 6 34s, and 1 36. Okay, so if I add these up this way, I will have 5, 6 is 11, and 5 is 16 this way. If I go this way, I get 7 and 8, 15 this way. So the median has to be 32. And that's just a strategy to make it a little faster. Could you write them all out? Definitely. And you could probably do that in under a minute. But like I said, our goal with the math is usually to make these so familiar that on test day, it's not a problem. Okay, let's go on. So we went to all the stuff that you have to know, but our job, so the first half of your book, I don't know, page 1 to whatever, probably 300, is all how to prepare for the test. But what junior has a life, especially if you do sports and have time to read all these pages? So my job is to show you all this stuff. So let's look at some advanced questions. The first one. So we have a whole lesson on functions, and which used not to be on the test at all. But let's look at this one. For what values of x does f of x equal 10? So I have to put the 10 in for f of x, not the x. And I have to find x. So I'm going to say 10, not too bad, 3/5 x minus 5. So I'll add 5 to both sides. And then multiply by the reciprocal. And so x is 25. Thank you, College Board, for 10 points. And this is just an overview. We're going to go in depth on all these questions. But this is sort of to reassure you. And the good news is there's no logs. There's no just one trig function, which we'll go over. There's no proofs. You just have to get lines, angles. I'd love to tell you what you don't need to know. So this is a composite function, which you probably have had in school, and so we work inside out. So we're going to put 4 in to the first into the g function, which will be 16, and then we'll just do 16 minus 4, which is 12. Thank you, College Board, for 10 points. This question is often later in the test, but it's only a 5-second question. So distinct on the SAT means different. So different zeros. So let's look at all these. And they consider this a hard question, but it really isn't. So we count this one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's A. I'm just going to look through the other ones. This is only 3 zeros. This is only 2. This is 1, 2, 3, 4. So definitely that's A. Okay, not so bad. Now, the next question, I want to ask you girls, did you ever see division like this where you're taking 4x minus 2 and dividing it by x plus 3? I guess they call it linear division. No, what do they call it?
Polynomial long division.
Polynomial long division. Since it could be on the test, it's not hard if you've never seen it before. Can you just say, I've had this or I have not? If you have not, it's not a worry because it's easy to learn. And we're going to do a whole page of them in our polynomial packet. I just want to know if you've ever seen this before. Okay, so Margot's seen this. Sophia, have you seen this? It's okay if you haven't. Oh, good. Okay, so let's try this one. We're going to do more in a lesson. I just wanted you to know. Okay, so x would go into 4x 4 times. Then I'd multiply 4x plus 12. And the trick is I parentheses protect this number that I'm subtracting it. So they'll subtract this one. This will change to a negative. These will be additive inverses, and then I'll get negative 14. And I just put that over our divisor, which is x plus 3, and I would get answer choice D. So thank you, College Board, for 10 points. And they consider that one a very difficult one. And we're going to be going over many of these in the class, but I just wanted to have an inkling if you've seen it before. Okay, so our next one is additional topics. So let's go to this question, which is difficult. In all the geometry, we just have 2 packets. So I promise you no proofs. You have to know SOHCAHTOA. Okay, so for this one, the tan of B is 3 over 4. So 3 over 4 is opposite over adjacent. So this will be the 3, and this will be the 4. So I can sort of see after you've done the class, and notice that the figure's not drawn to scale. That means I can't eyeball it. And this one's difficult because I don't have a specific number. Okay, so it looks like, and I could use a Pythagorean theorem, or I could know it's a 3, 4, 5 right triangle. If I had to, I could use the Pythagorean theorem. But after we've done, I know a lot of people say, I had geometry in 8th grade or something. Okay, so now we're all good. So this triangle right here is similar to this one. So that means they're the same shape, but they're not the same size. So look what they did. I have to multiply 6 by what to get 18? This larger one is times 3. Okay? So then I would have to multiply, well, let's see, yeah. So this would actually be a 3, 4, 5, which would be a 6, 8, 10, because this is a multiple. I don't need this 10 necessarily, but now I have the whole, this base is 8, this whole other base has to be 24. So EC, oh, I don't need the whole thing. I just need 24 minus 8. Which would be 16. And that's a hard one, I agree. So if you can C1, just put C1. If you have a question, probably if Sophia has a question, probably Margot has the same question. Because it's been a while since you've had geometry. Okay, so Sophia sees it, which is great because it's hard. Because I have to go from a 3, 4, 5 to a 6, 8, 10. This would be like almost the last question. And Margot sees it too. Wonderful. Now, the last question in geometry, and we're going to be doing, this is a complex number one. So if you remember, I equals the square root of -1, and I squared equals a -1. You guys have already started school, so I'm not your reentry person for school, thank goodness. So we're going to FOIL this. So that'll be 9 minus 12i plus 12i minus 16i squared. So these terms will cancel each other out. And basically I have 9 minus 16. I squared is a -1. And so that'll be 9 plus 16, which equals a 25. So if you see 2, just put that in the chat room. If I'm going to, I hope I'm not going too fast. This is just an overview. We're going to get into more details. Just put C2 in the chat room if it makes sense, because the inner and the outer terms will drop out. The plus 12i. Okay, so Margot's okay with it. Plus 12i and the minus 12i will cancel because they're additive inverses. Oh, you both see it. Good. Now this one I don't expect you to do, so I'm going to do it with you. There is a formula on the test they do not give you. It's the formula for a circle on the coordinate plane. And it's been on every test, right, Jim? Mm-hmm. So we're going to go over this in the circle lesson, I promise you. And the 8 formulas that they don't give you, we'll highlight in our program, so you're not going in without knowing it. So for this one, I have to complete the square. So I'm going to divide this by 2. And this will be x minus 3 squared plus y minus 4 squared. And this is always the radius squared. And I'm trying to get the radius. So let's do the work here. And I realize this might be confusing, and not to worry, we're going to do it again. So if I square x minus 3, we're going to go in depth. This is just an overview. Hard to write on this thing. And since I already have 39 here, since I added a 9 here, I have to add a 9 here. Since I added a 16 here, I have to add a 16 here. And so I will get, they always work out pretty well. 64 is the radius squared, so the radius would have to be 8. So this is like, I don't know why you put this one on. It's really hard circle problem. It's my son's fault. So if you see 3, or if you, I bet you have a question, so just put a question mark and I'll go over it again. This is all on Jimmy, but we want to
tell him what the center of the circle would be.
Oh, the center of the circle would be 3, 4. But they don't ask it that. They ask the radius. So just put C3 if you see it. If you have a question, which I probably think you would have. So we're completing the square, which hopefully you did sometime in some math class. You divide by 2. And then when you FOIL it, you'll get another 9. And if you add 9 to this side, you have to add it to this side. Okay, so Margot is confused. Okay, no problem, sweetheart. Okay, so we're going to go over it again. Not to worry, because we have a whole circle lesson to go over this. Okay, so I'm going to try to go a little slower, because you might not have ever seen this formula before. Okay, so the actual formula is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals the radius squared. And hk is the center of the circle. So because Jimmy made the packets and he was diabolical, blame him, I have to complete the square. So what I do, the process of completing the square, he really put some tough ones on here. I'll have to yell at him later. I divide by 2 because there's an inner and an outer. So I will get x minus 3 squared for this number, because then when I FOIL it, I will get x squared. We're going to go over this a lot. Minus 6x, because it's negative 3x, plus 9. And then I have to divide this by 2. So that'll be y squared minus 8y plus 16 equals 39. So I added an additional 9 and a 16 to this left side of the equation. So that's 25 that I added. Hopefully that makes sense, because like this part has another 25 in it. So I have to add 25 to this one, and that would be 64. Yeah, 39 and 25 is 64. And that equals the radius squared. This will become clearer when we do the circle lesson. Honestly, Margot. And so we just take the square root of 64. Okay, this is all on Jimmy being super tough. Does that help a little bit, Margot?
It's okay if it doesn't.
It's okay.
We're going to do many of these.
We're going to do many of these, because you might not have had this in a geometry class. Hopefully it's a little clearer, and don't worry about it.
They love that formula too.
But they love this formula. So we'll have a lot of practice with this formula. But I'm wondering if that helped a little, Margot. Okay, you could have a great life and not solve that one. Okay. All righty. Now, we can blame Jimmy for that hard problem.
So it's my turn?
Boo. So it's his turn. So we're going to let Jimmy, who created that last hard problem, you can just say boo in your house. He's going to go through the reading part, and then you get a break.
Okay, so my name is Mr. Hessler. As my mother mentioned, I went to Penn State. I studied English there, so that's what we're going to talk about now, the English half of the SAT. So we have the SAT reading test. This is always the first section that you encounter when you take an SAT. And if you have any questions, just put the question in the chat room, and I will do my best to answer it. I will monitor the chat room as we go along. So the reading test is the first section. You have an hour and 5 minutes to complete it. It's just reading comprehension. There are 52 questions total. and it's passage based, as all of the English is on the SAT. So they'll give you 4 single passages and 1 pair of passages on a similar theme, and all of the passages are only about a page long, 500 to 750 words long. And the topics are US and world literature, history, social studies, and science. And really, they're just testing your reading comprehension. I like to say of the reading comprehension, the answers are somewhere on the page in front of you. You just have to discern what the answer is. So they will test your ability to determine explicit or implicit meanings on the SAT, cite textual evidence, determine central ideas and or themes, understand logical relationships within the text, interpret words in context. This is how they test vocab. Analyze word choice, analyze text structure, analyze points of view, analyze purpose, analyze arguments, analyze quantitative information. Basically, they can throw in a graph or a chart. Maybe they'll throw in a pie chart or a bar graph, and they'll expect you to compare that with the text. Does the text say what the bar graph says? Can we make the text reflect what the chart says or the graph says? Basically, that's all you have to do for that. Okay, so for the first topic, the US and world literature topic, under that category we have this, the US founding documents and the great global conversation. So I'm not sure why they chose this long-winded, grandiose title. It's really just civics. So it could be a founding document. It could be it could be something written by a founding father, maybe something by Hamilton or Jefferson, Madison. But it might be something later. It could be something by a later author who they say is in conversation with these founding fathers by writing about similar topics, by writing about quote-unquote American ideals. So democracy, liberty, civil rights. It'll be a document centered on one of those subjects, really. So maybe you'll get something written by a suffragette, or maybe you'll have something written by a former slave, an escaped slave, a freed slave. So I'm just trying to say that it may not be a founding work, even though they're calling this the founding documents section. So maybe you'll get instead of a founding document, maybe you'll get letter from a Birmingham jail by Dr. Martin Luther King, or the I Have a Dream speech. I'm just saying it could be something later, but it will be civics. So here we have a global conversation passage on the next page here. And this one most certainly is by a founding father. This one's by Samuel Adams. And they always introduce these passages. They always give you a little snippet here at the beginning so you know what you're reading. And this one says it's adapted from the report of the Committee of Correspondence to the Boston Town Meeting from November 20th, 1772 by Samuel Adams. And this reading passage is about half the size of a real one. We intentionally made this a little smaller because today is more of an overview. An actual SAT reading passage would be twice this length as far as the actual text, and it would have 10 or 11 questions to go along with it instead of 5. But we made this intentionally a little bit shorter just as today is more of an overview for the English. So why don't you two try this reading passage, try this sample reading passage, read the passage by Samuel Adams, see if you can answer the 5 questions below. These are just like SAT questions, so they're testing you exactly as you will be tested when you take the actual SAT. So take a couple minutes, read this excerpt by Samuel Adams, try the 5 questions, and just put done or finished in the chat room whenever you're finished with it. Margot's finished. Oh, Sophie is also done. Okay, great. So let's look at this reading passage. So the first question is a main idea question. I can tell that because of these words, primary purpose. So they're asking me about a main idea. So what is the purpose of this passage? And they give us some answer choices. We could say that it establishes the Constitution of the United States. It rationalizes the actions of the British Parliament. It demands a reaction to the Boston Massacre, or primarily it elaborates the rights of the colonists. So we can probably eliminate some of these answer choices just by going through some of them and just see what makes sense. So I read the document, but I'm pretty sure it does not establish the Constitution of the United States. And this is only 1772, so that does not seem to be what Samuel Adams is doing with these paragraphs here. Does it rationalize the actions of the British Parliament? Does this in any way sound pro-British? Obviously not. Of course not. So we either have it down to it's demanding a reaction to the Boston Massacre or elaborating the rights of the colonists. And of course, it's only 1772. There's nothing in this passage about the Boston Massacre, and the Boston Massacre hasn't even happened yet. So it is not C, it is D. Mainly, this passage just elaborates the rights of the colonists as Samuel Adams sees them. That's all it does here. And number 2 is a vocab question. So this is sort of how they test vocab on the SAT. They test it in context. So they'll give it to you in a sentence, and they'll just say, okay, the verb to seed means what within the context of this sentence? So I'm going to read the word as written, and then we can, I'm going to read the sentence as written, and then we can decide what word can we sub in that would have a similar meaning for seeded. So I'm going to read from line 16. Every natural right, not expressly given up or from the nature of a social compact necessarily ceded, remains. So what does it mean to seed something? Sure, we could just go randomly pick a word that they give us, but it's probably best to try the words they give you back into the sentence. Read the words they give you, the answer choices they give you back in the sentence. Only one of them is going to make sense, and 3 of the answer choices will just create gibberish. So I'm going to try that strategy right now. All I'm going to do is read the word borrowed right where the word seeded is and see if it makes sense. Every natural right, not expressly given up, or from the nature of a social compact, necessarily borrowed, remains. And that makes no sense, so I can just cross it off. I tried the word borrow. To borrow something does not mean to cede something. I just tried reading it, it made no sense. I'm going to try relinquish. Perhaps to cede something means to relinquish it, to give it up. Let's try it. Every natural right, not expressly given up, or from the nature of a social compact, necessarily relinquished, remains. And that makes perfect sense. That is the right answer. To cede something is to relinquish it, to give it up. And if you read the words back into the sentence, if you read appropriated or reserved, they would make no sense in that sentence, and you know that they're the wrong answer choices. So always read the words back in the sentence. Back in to the sentence they give you. Adams expressly indicates in the passage that all men have the right to what? And we have some answer choices. Answer choice A says the pursuit of happiness. Answer choice B says the right to enter into a social contract. Answer choice C says freedom of speech. And D says mandate the state religion. So for this one, I'm going to highlight this word expressly because it's important. So if they say Adams expressly indicates something within the passage, that means it's literally in there somewhere. So of course Adams would agree that you have rights that he does not personally enumerate, but this is one that he expressly mentions. That's all I'm trying to say here. So for example, of course Adams would say that you have a right as a colonist to a freedom of speech, but it's not in the passage expressly, so I'm going to cross it off. Does he mention the pursuit of happiness within this document? No, according to Adams, it's a right to life, liberty, and property. So that pursuit of happiness, that's a different document. I think that's a trap answer choice for answer choice A. What about D? Do the colonists have the right to mandate the state religion? And you might be tempted to pick answer choice D because he does talk about religion. But what is a mandate? A mandate is a requirement. I can't require you to practice a particular religion, at least according to what Adams is saying. Because Adams says, I'm just going to quote from him. He says, every colonist has a right peaceably and quietly to worship God according to the dictates of his own conscience. So we most certainly can't mandate the state religion. Answer choice D is out. Really, Adams is just talking about the colonists and their ability to enter into a social contract if they so desire with one another. And now for question 4, we have to find the evidence. So this is one of those evidence-based questions that they've added to the SAT since they redesigned it in 2016. And it's kind of difficult because if you miss question 3, you're probably going to miss question 4. And that's why this can be a difficult question. Although sometimes I've had students say to me, well, when I was looking at all of the evidence in question 4, I was unable to support my answer choice in the previous question, so I knew I had the wrong answer choice, and then I was able to go back and correct both of them. That's possible too. So it's kind of a harder type of question. I think it's difficult in that if you miss one of them, you probably are going to miss both of them. But it's on every SAT. About 2 of the questions per passage are going to be these evidence type questions. So now we have to find the part in the passage where Adams mentions that the colonists have this right to enter into a social contract with one another if they so desire. And he mentions this part right here in lines 10 to 14. I'm going to read the lines. So here are lines 10 to 14. When men enter into society, it is by voluntary consent, and they have a right to demand and insist upon the performance of such conditions and previous limitations as form an equitable original compact. So a compact is a contract. It's the same exact thing. So the previous question said that the colonists have the right to enter into a social contract. A social contract is a social compact. It's the same concept, just a different word. So a compact is a contract. These colonists can form agreements with one another and enter into social contracts with one another, at least according to Adams, according to the way that he sees it. Okay, so next one is question 5. And it says, in the passage, Adams expresses which of the following with regard to natural laws and civil laws? So we just have to recall from the passage, okay, when did we read the part about the natural laws and the civil laws? Well, it looks like it's at the top of this second column right here. I'm going to highlight this statement, and all we have to do is find the closest paraphrase of it in the answer choices. So here's what he says about the positive, the civil laws, the natural laws. Here we go. I'm going to read it. All positive and civil laws should conform as far as possible to the laws of natural reason and equity. So all we have to do is find the closest paraphrase of that statement. It's not A, natural laws and civil laws don't govern different aspects of society. That's not what the passage says. The passage says B, when possible, civil laws should conform or comply with the natural laws. So that's a sample reading passage. It's about half the size of a real one. And this would be the global conversation topic. There are also the other topics. There is... just want to cover them. There's also science passages. You'll have 2 of those or 1 in a pair. And there are also history, so there are also literature passages. All right, so let's move on to the next topic. That was the reading. Now we're moving on to the writing. So this is the second section of the SAT. Primarily, they're testing you on grammar. About 80% of this section They're testing you on a grammar concept. About 20% of the time, they're testing you on a convention of style and composition. So for this section, you have 35 minutes to complete it. There will be 44 questions total for the writing test. And the passages are a little bit shorter. They're still passage-based. The questions are still passage-based. But the passages are only 400 to 550 words now, so slightly shorter. And the topics are slightly different as well. The topics will be careers, history, social studies, humanities, and science. Mainly they're testing you on grammar. I'd say it's about 80% grammar and maybe 20% usage. 20% style, composition, that sort of thing. Make a note there. Around 80%. So it's mostly grammar. And we can memorize some grammar rules and we can reproduce those on the SAT. So it's not too bad. This section shouldn't be too hard if you're a native English speaker. All right, so let's try main ideas. Yeah, so they will test you on all of these. I'm just going to read the topics they will test you on. They'll test you on main ideas, revisions, and support. They'll ask you why or why not revisions should or should not be made. So they will not only just ask you to revise a text, they might ask you why or why not. They will test you on sentence formation. So what is a complete sentence compared to a fragment? Well, a sentence expresses a complete thought and has punctuation, that sort of thing. They'll test you on subordination and coordination. So they'll test you on those types of clauses, subordinating and coordinating clauses. They'll test you on parallel structure. They will test you on modifiers. They will test you on shifts in verb, tense, mood, voice, and pronoun, person, and number. In general, the SAT is very heavy on pronouns. They'll test you on pronoun antecedent agreement, subject-verb agreement, and noun agreement. So, for example, a pronoun must agree with its antecedent in person, gender, and number. A subject must agree with its verb and number, that sort of thing. They will test you on possessives. They will test you on frequently confused words. I don't know, maybe something like this. Homophones, perhaps, words that sound similar to one another. Logical comparisons, they'll test you on conventions of punctuation. How do you use a semicolon? How do you correctly use an em dash on the SAT? Or a comma, they'll test you on commas maybe. Colons, any of those types of punctuation. Idioms, they'll test you on analyzing quantitative information. Basically, they may throw in a chart or a graph on the writing section. And similar to the reading section, you'll have to change the writing. You'll have to change the wording of the passage to reflect what is actually taking place in the chart or graph. Can you correct the text to make it more accurate, basically? So we're going to look at an SAT writing passage. And just like the last time, this is a mini one. In the interest of time today, we've shortened this just because today's more of an overview and actually, to be honest, a little bit math heavy. But it's okay. Today's an overview for the English. So for the writing passage, let's turn to that now. And here's a writing passage. And I did want to mention this in case you were confused. But these boxed numbers, these big boxy numbers, those are the question numbers. These other numbers, these bracketed numbers that you're going to encounter later on in the second paragraph, all they did was sequence the sentences within this second paragraph. All he did is number them. You're going to need that for question 5. They'll just give you them in ordered numbers. So that confused me the first time I looked at one of these. I was confused. Wait, which are the actual questions? What's going on with these other numbers? But that's what's going on there. So the actual box numbers will be the questions. And all you have to do is choose an answer choice. A would be leave it as written. Don't change it. The sentence was correct. And then B, C, or D gives you the option to change the passage. And if any of those answer choices are correct, you would just bubble in B, C, or D. A would mean leave it, sentence was fine. B, C, or D means change it in the following way. So take a couple minutes, try these 5 sample writing questions to the right as you read this small excerpt to the left about the cell biology researchers. This is half the size of a real one. A real one would be 11 questions total. So try these 5 and just put done or finished in the chat room whenever you finish these, and we'll go over them briefly. Margo's finished. Okay, it's been about 5 minutes, so we'll start going over this writing passage. Let's look at the first question. So I'm going to read it as written first, and then we can decide if we want to change it. So here's the sentence as written. In order to pursue a career in this field, cell biologists must be adept with modern technologies, such as data mining and imaging spectroscopy, in order to impact their research forward. So here's another vocab question, and here they're testing your understanding of these words. Is impact the best answer choice here, or is there a word that's a little more suitable to the situation? I think there is. I think there is an answer choice that works a little bit better than impact. So certainly you would want your research to make an impact or to have an impact, but when you impact something with a verb, something physically impacts something else. A car impacts another automobile, for example. That's what we have here. And that's not the situation that we have. So if something is impacting something else, it's a physical interaction. Something's hitting something else physically. You would not want to dispel or spread out your research. And you would, of course, never want to impede your own research. That would make absolutely no sense. You would never shoot yourself in the foot in that way. But you could propel your research forward. That is the closest word here. That's the most suitable word that fits the best in the sentence. So that's how they test vocab on the writing section. It's similar to how they tested on the reading section. They tested in context. Here's a second question. I'm going to read it as written. Utilizing techniques found in other disciplines, such as programming and statistics, data must be extracted and analyzed by scientists for significant results. So this question, they're actually testing you on something called a dangling participle, which we're going to cover in an English lesson. But basically, participles are verbs in English. I'm going to highlight the participle in this sentence that I'm talking about. So here it is. So they're just verbs in English. And typically, we can think of verbs as just being action words. Mark goes, Tim hikes. Verbs typically just show action, but they can actually be modifiers. So I can actually modify a noun within this sentence similar to the way in which I would modify it with an adjective, utilizing a verb, which is interesting. Another way of thinking about this question is I could just ask myself, can numbers utilize techniques found in other disciplines? They're just numbers. Of course they can't. Numbers can't utilize anything. The utilizers would be the scientists. And it's just a proximity thing. Scientists need to be where data is. That's all that's going on here. So I'm going to read the corrected form so you can see it. It's just a dangling participle here. Utilizing techniques found in other disciplines, such as programming and statistics, the scientists must extract and analyze their data for significant results. So now scientists are in the correct place. Now data aren't utilizing anything, and now the sentence makes sense. So watch out for dangling participles. They love these. These are on every SAT, so just make a note of that. On every SAT. They love dangling participles. I'm not sure why. Number 3. Here's number 3. Nevertheless, collaboration between biomedical researchers and clinicians is vital to advancing new therapies that will improve patient care. So they will test you on transitional words and phrases. And we're going to go over those in a lesson. But basically, for these reasons does not mean the same thing as additionally. So they just give you some different answer choices, some different transitions. And good transitions make your writing easier to understand. Poor transitions make it harder to understand your writing. But that's all they do is just, they write these correctly first, and then they just mix them up. So we don't need the logic of it. Nevertheless, an adversarial transition here actually makes no sense. However, the additive transition of an additionally does make sense. We're adding some more information here. Additionally, collaboration between biomedical researchers and clinicians is vital to advancing new therapies that will improve patient care. So we're going to go over transitional words and phrases in another lesson, just in case you missed number 3. So don't worry about that one, if that's the case. Here's number 4. I'm going to read number 4 as written, and then we can decide if we want to modify it. Other cell biologists may use their research to advance pharmacology, developing new drugs for cancer and other debilitating illnesses on top of that. So here we have some answer choices. Answer choice A says on top of that, B says likewise, C says in addition, and answer choice D says D, delete, all of that. And I want to introduce the concept here of wordiness. And the SAT hates wordiness. What do I mean by wordiness? Well, here are 1, 2, 3, 4. Here are 4 additional words just tacked onto the end of our sentence, which really aren't doing anything for our sentence. The College Board would just say delete this because the concise answer choice here would be the correct answer choice. If you can state yourself simply, if you can state yourself clearly, you probably should, according to the College Board. So it's not my opinion. The College Board feels that these are extraneous words. These are unnecessary words tacked on the end. Even likewise or in addition are unnecessary. It's not required in our sentence. The SAT hates wordiness, so I often find myself counting the number of words in the answer choices on the SAT writing section, just because I've seen how often they just throw out some ridiculously wordy answer choices, some long answer choices, and then the correct answer choice tends to be a word or two long compared to these long answer choices. So just watch out that is a strategy of the test maker. Number 5 is a sequencing question. So they will test your ability to logically sequence information within a passage, and they will test your ability to sequence mainly sentences, but I have seen them one time they asked you to move an entire paragraph within the passage. But mainly it's just a sentence. So here it says the author is considering adding the following sentence. The new sentence says these clinical trials may hold the key to discovering novel pathogens or identifying molecular information vital to the diagnosis and treatment of patients. This sentence would most be logically placed where? So for the sequencing type of question, here's what I want you to always find. They always give you a clue. They have to give you a clue. Because they write these passages so specifically, the order of the sentences within the paragraphs are important because the sentences depend on each other. So basically, you'll run into a sentence that's too early, or you'll encounter a sentence that is much too late, and you just have to find the right home for the sentence. In this case, we're just adding a new one, but sometimes they have you move an existing sentence. In this case, we have a new sentence that we're adding, and I'm going to highlight the clue. So I said that these always have a clue. Here's the clue. These words right here. These clinical trials. That's your clue. So because of those words, this sentence can only fit like a Tetris piece. It has to fit just in one tiny little place within this paragraph. Simply because of these words. This sentence, this new sentence, must follow the sentence that talks about the clinical trials. It must immediately follow the sentence that talks about the clinical trials. So now all I have to do is find the other sentence within this paragraph that mentions them. And it's right here. So the new sentence must immediately follow sentence 3, which is answer choice C. They always give you a clue with these sequencing questions. You find the clue, you find the answer. That's all you have to do. And then once you found a home for your new sentence, always read it back to back in its new place within the body of the paragraph. It should fit like a glove. It should fit so perfectly it could fit nowhere else. I'm going to do that right now, and you'll see it work. So here they are back to back. Others may assist in designing clinical trials and assess blood or tissue samples from patients involved in such experimental medicine. These clinical trials may hold the key to discovering novel pathogens or identifying molecular information vital to the diagnosis and treatment of patients. So that's a sequencing question, and that's the writing passage. You'll have 4 of those, and they give you 44 minutes to complete that whole section, and they are longer than this. This was a shorter one on purpose. We gave you one with 5 questions instead of 11 questions, as today is more of an overview for the English. So that is actually all of the English that is on the SAT now that they have removed the SAT essay. We are going to go over the Common App essay that you probably will write. You probably will write one of those if you ever complete the Common Application, if you use that to apply for college. But there's no longer any kind of SAT essay. The SAT essay is gone. So that's the good news. They announced this year that they'll never give this again. SAT essay is gone. So if you ever see anything mentioning the SAT essay in the Blue Book, for example, or anywhere really, you can just ignore it. They've eliminated this. It was never very popular. So we are going to go over one that is popular. We are going to go over the Common App essay because that's the most popular essay right now that you may have to write if you submit college applications. So that's all of the SAT English. So I think, can I give them a break?
Yeah, tell them to come back.
Yeah, it's 3:44 now. What do you think? Let's take a break. I'll just write down a time here. See what Mrs. Hessler says.
What about 3:50?
Back at 3:50? That sounds good to me. We just have a little bit more math to do, so I'll pass you back to Mrs. Hessler for that in a little bit. but I'll just make a note
Get a
here.
snack, use the
Yeah, get a snack, use the restroom, whatever you need, get a drink. We'll be back at 3:50 p.m.
Hey, Jim. Not that I want to correct you, but just something to know. No, this is just something. Those words like ing words are gerunds,
Yeah.
and to be, those are infinitives. They're not verbs, they're verbals.
I know that. But it doesn't matter for their purposes.
I know. So you can make those packets up.
Yeah, I'm doing it.
Where's Phil?
I don't know.
Did he bring Dad's car? Hey, Jim. Hey, Jimmy. James. Jim.
What?
I need my heart of algebra.
I know. I thought they were on a break.
Yeah.
They're not taking a break?
Yeah, they're taking a break, but you never put
I
it
know.
on, you said. Do you need me to get up?
No.
Okay, sorry.
Hmm?
Is Philip out back?
I don't know.
Sorry. Okay, as soon as you're back, just let us know you're back. Oh, so Margot's back. We'll just wait for Sophia Bennett. So all you need to find, Margot, is the Heart of Algebra Part 1 packet. So we only have, oh, Sophia's back too. Great, girls. So, and my math princesses. So we're going to go through this packet. We only have 9 of these packets. And we're trying at least to raise your score at least 100 points, which is at least 10 questions. Okay, so let's go to the first page. Pretty easy here. Getting used to word problems. Tom is X years old. Susan's age is 3 years less than 7 times Tom's age. How many years old is Susan in terms of X? So remember I said the pick the number strategy. So let's look at this one. Melissa paid $80 last month to her health club, and she visited the club at least once. She visited the club. Let's say, oh, thank you. That makes it harder to write, though.
I know. But I can see you better.
Oh, they can see me better. Well, I rather they could see the screen. So let's say, because it's so hard because this is vertical. Let's say she went 10 times to the club. So that means her cost each time would be $8. So when I put in 10, was it $10 each time? No. Was it $800 a time? She should have her head examined if that's the case. It wasn't 8 over 80. So the answer we want is 80 over 10. This gives us the $8 we need. So that's how picking numbers can help you, and I'm going to have you do it in a second. So you've had these in school, and this is a common question on the test. So, you know, we always have our y-intercept and our x. So this is miles from home. We're going to do a lot with slopes and systems on Tuesday. So our Tuesday class is at 5:30 to 8:30. Okay, so she starts way up here at 580 miles from home. She can make it home in 10 hours. What is the correct expression? I'll let you girls try this. Just put an answer in the chat room if you think you can do this one. If not, just put a question mark. We make all our mistakes here. So she's starting 580 away, and she gets home in 10 hours. But how much is she at each point along the way? So this is our rate. And we'll do a lot with this on Tuesday. MX plus B. The number before our X is always our rate. B in this case is our 580. So I'll let you see if any answer makes sense to you. So when we put in 10, we should get out a 0, right? When x is 10, y should be 0. So does any one of those answers make sense to either one of you? If not, that's okay. We're going to put in 10 and get out a 0 because she made it home. Yes, Margot, it is C. Because she's starting at 580. The 58 is definitely our rate. Which, oh good, Sophia, too. So that's a common question on the test. So let's go on to this one. Next page. So everything in here we strategically put. A paper towel dispenser gives an 8-inch length of paper towel each time we hit the sensor. So let's say we hit the sensor twice. We should get 16 inches out of the paper towel dispenser. So what answer, when we put in 2, do we get 16? And this answer will definitely be B. Thank you, College Board, for 10 points. So some of these may seem simple to you, but there's method in our madness. This one is pretty hard. So we sort of take you into the deep water slowly so you don't realize we're doing it. So the sum of x and 4. Okay, so this is less than the square of the difference between x and 4, but greater than the square. Oh, I flipped it. I shouldn't have done it that way. Wait. So the x plus 4, let me switch this. So the sum of x plus 4 is less than the square of the difference between x and 4, but greater than the square of 1/2 x. And so this was a little hard because I reversed it. But anyway, the big question on this is, do I have to square that 1/2? And yes, I do, because it's in the parentheses. So that will be 1/4 x squared is less than x plus 4, which is less than x minus 4 squared, which gives us answer choice A. Thank you, College Board, for 10 points. That was a hard one. And like I said, I tried to just get you ready for any kind of question so that you're going up at least 100 points in math, which can make a big difference. Okay, so you've had direct variation all the time in school. It's just, remember, as one value goes up, the other value goes up. So the time required to pick apples, our constant is going to be K. So the bushels, so the more bushels, the more time. The inverse is to the number of people picking apples, P. So we're going to divide by P because the inverse expression is this. Remember, we put the x under the k. So our answer is T equals KB over P, which is answer choice C. Okay. Now we're going into choosing number strategy. So this, again, is our strategy, especially you can use it to check your work. You can use it into harder word problems. So you don't have to draw the pictures like we did here. So Angela has X photographs. I just randomly said 10. Her photo album can hold Y photographs per page. So I randomly picked 3. So I drew the picture, but you don't have to do this on test day. So she has 3 photos, 1 left over. And so how many pages does she have? So she has 3 pages, right? So we want to put in these numbers and see which one will kick out the 3. So let's try. This would be 11 over 3, which is not equal to 3. The next one is 13 over 1, which does not equal 3. C would be 10 minus 3 over 1, which would give us 7. So it better be D. Let's try it. 10 minus 1 over 3. 9 over 3 equals 3. Thank you, College Board, for 10 points. Okay, so that's our strategy. We're trying to give you that in your toolbox. So let's try this one, which is a little hard, actually. So the rate for a telephone call between A and B is 50 cents for the first minute and 20 cents for each additional minute or portion thereof. So we want n minutes. So pick a value of n for yourself. And then figure out the answer that you would pick. And just put your answer in the chat room. Just want you to try this, because you're going to maybe at the very end of the test use this strategy. Okay, so you both had B, but B is not correct. The actual answer is C. Okay, so what I did was I said I have a 3-minute call. The first minute is 50 cents. Then I have 2 minutes at 20 cents, which is 40 cents. So my call is 90 cents. If I picked B, I would have $1.10. I need C because I have to subtract that first minute because I already counted it. Okay, so do you see number 1? Just put down C1 if you see it now that it's C. try your number and see if C comes out correctly. It's just, okay, so Margot's good with it. So it's just a good strategy because probably many juniors will get duped into picking B. Okay, let's do a couple more. For every $10, I'm going to do these with you, Nakia earns, she gives $4 to Jasmine, who helps her. Which of the following gives the relationship between D, the dollars Nakia earns, and J, the dollars she gives to Jasmine? So let's put in, we know that, let's say Nakia is 10. She gives Jasmine $4. Does 10 equal 16 over 10? No way. So let's try B. Does 10 equal 10 times 4 over 4? So 40 over 4 is 10. And so we have a winner with B. I just want to try to equip you with this strategy because if you get stuck, picking a number can often either monitor your answer or even with just pure algebra. Okay, so let's try another one. The price of 10 apples, let's say it's $10. D is 10. So that's $1 a pound, which is pretty easy to think about. 6 of the apples weigh an average of 1 pound. So, which of the following is the average price of a dozen apples? So a dozen apples which would be 2 pounds, right? We want 2 pounds of apples. So that would be, and plus we have to change it to cents, notice. So 2 pounds would be $2, but in cents, if I changed $2 to cents, it would just be 200. So which answer, when I put in a 10 for D, gives me out 200 cents, and it would be A. Okay, on the next page, we're going to try a very hard one. I know this is a new strategy, but as we go through the class, if you get stuck on a question, you can try this. So, number 4, to celebrate a colleague's birthday, let's say we have 5 coworkers in the office, and they're going out to a lunch. The whole lunch costs $100. So they're each paying $20 a lunch. But C of the coworkers are cheap because this was the hardest question on a test. So let's say C is 2. So that means 3 people have to pay the whole $100. So they're paying $33.33 because of these cheap people here. Because if I did this, I would really be in a quandary. Without bringing it into the real world, I could not do this problem. So initially they paid $20. Now they have to pay $33.33. This would be a calculator problem. So we subtract the $20. So they're each going to have to pay $13.33 more than they would have it when they started. So let's see, we've got our numbers. Would X over N, remember, would 100 over 5 be 1333?
That's
No way. Would x, which is 100, over n minus c, which is 3, that's the 3333. That could be a possibility, but we want to know the additional amount. We're looking for the 1333. So let's try C. So we have 100 times n5 minus 2, 300 over 5. That's not correct. That's $60. So it better be D. Let's try it. 2 times $100, which is 200, over 5 times 5 minus 2, which is 3, and 200 divided by 15. Voila, on the calculator, we get the answer we need. So I'm going to do one more and then give you the last one. So let's look at this one. A telephone company, because often word problems are the hardest ones. A telephone company charges X cents for the first minute. So because like if you call somebody to your house, like a plumber, usually to drive out there, it's a little bit more. And then Y cents per minute. So let's say it's just 25 cents after that. So a certain call is $7.75. Let's figure out how long the call is. So we subtract the first minute, and then we're going to divide by 0.25. You can either use the decimal or not. And so that would be 29, because 4 times 7 is 28. So 1 minute plus 29 minutes, we need a call of 30 minutes. So let's see, let's start with A. 775 minus our X was 50. This will only give us 29 minutes. You might hear my cat in the background. So let's try B. 775 plus 50 cents minus the quarter, or minus 25. No, that wouldn't work either. But look at C. So for C, we'll have 775 minus the 50 cents plus another quarter. So that would be 725 plus 25, that'd be 750 over a quarter, which indeed would give us 30 minutes. Thank you, College Board, for 10 points. So what I'd like you to do, girls, I'm just getting you used to word problems because they are the most stymieing usually. So I want you to come up with a pair of dollars for the pair of pants. So the Mark is buying $85 worth of stuff. He has 1 pair of pants and 2 shirts that are equal. So I'd like you to figure out your little number and then see which expression would answer it. And then just put your answer in the chat room. So just put an answer in the chat room for what you got for your answer. We're doing this here so that on test day it'll be much easier. Okay, so the answer is D. So just take a minute and look at this. We make our own mistakes here. So we have $85. I said my pants were $35. So I subtract my pants. Then I have the $50 that I'm dividing by 2. And so I would have $25 each. And D would give me my answer. I have to subtract the pants before I divide by 2. So is that okay, Sophia, now? Just getting you used to these word problems. And now we're going to go on to something that's often on the test. We make all our mistakes here. Okay. Oh, great, sweetheart. Okay, so now this will be probably you'll get one of these. So we have to create a system of equations out of words. So let's try this one. Our examples are always in gray. A coffee blend contains Sumatra beans, which are $6 a pound, and Kona beans, which are $14 per pound. The whole blend costs $12 per pound. Which of the following systems could be used to find how much coffee in 60 pounds? Now, the temptation is to go to the answers right away. And if you do that, you're probably going to be in consternation halfway through. I would preempt this. I'm going to give you a chance to do this in a second by writing the equations out. So first we have the pounds. Let's do the beans. So the Sumatra beans are S. So we know 6S plus 14K would equal 14 times 12. You would have to do this on a calculator. So the total of the beans would be, the money equation is 720. Because we have, and then we have our simple S plus Kona beans is 60. So I got this 720 by doing 60 times $12 for the average. Okay, so you just have to set it up in this case. You don't have to solve it. So let's do a couple and then I'll have you try a couple book ones. So the width of a rectangle, so with word problems, the width is translates equals the length minus 5, and we're trying to get the perimeter of the rectangle. So that'll be 2L plus 2W, because that's perimeter. They are nice enough to give you the rectangle, is 48. So these two are areas, so they're out of the mix. And I have to change this around a little bit, add 5 to this. So length is width plus 5. And so these two equations would be answer choice A. So let's go on to one more, and then I'm going to have you try some book problems. Okay. Like I said, the temptation is to dive right into the answer choices, but by then it's better to just preempt it by writing it out. You'll probably get one of these. The toll rates for crossing a bridge, so $8 for the cars, which are X, $12.50 for the trucks, which are Y. We have 345 cars and trucks, so the cars plus the trucks is going to equal 345. Then I need my money equation, which will be $8 for the car, $12.50 for the truck, and the whole thing is 3048. And that looks a lot like answer choice B, because everything else is messed up. But if you get involved in all of this, you're just going to have a lot of consternation. So let's try a book problem. The first one I want to try is on 737, number 11. So this is a very popular question type. Like I said, the SAT math is so predictable. We had 3 800s last year, even doing it online during COVID. So we're going to try 737. No, wait, first, hold on. That's the harder one. Let's try the easier one first. Let's go to 601. And we're going to try number 6. And again, now you're getting stronger with word problems. So I would write these out and not look at the choices and then match your answer and just put it in the chat room. And take your time. We make all our mistakes here. So great, Margot. And now that you've done one of these and you've thought it through, it's going to be much easier on test day. Okay, so Sophia, we'll go slowly. So, the tickets, the bench tickets, plus the lawn tickets. Well, I can't write lawn. Sorry, this tablet's hard. They're selling a total of 350 tickets. Then we need our money equation. $75 for a bench, plus to sit on the lawn, it's only $40. And then here's all our money. So the answer is D. And I want you to take the time to process it. Like I said, I did math certification as a mom in my 40s, and I know what it's like to be confused by math problems, trust me. So I want to see if that makes sense now. You have to go all through those words, but if you just look at the choices, you can get confused. So see, Sophia, if that makes any sense. So first we're doing, this is the number question. And this is the money one. And I just want you to try this so on test day. Oh, now it makes sense. Oh, great. See, it's harder to see things in math than it is in English sometimes. So we'll try one more, which is a little tad harder, because this is a popular question. Page 737, number 11. And it's good that your brains are working. You know, if I don't push you, we're not going to get those 100 points. We want to get at least. I have had people go up 200 points. So you just want to go through all those words, which I know is a pain, but get the number of games and then the cost of the games, or the volume of the games. I'm sorry. This is not money, but it's volumes. It just looks intimidating because that's how they want it to look. But just see if you can write the two equations without going into all the answer choices. You do have to arrange one of them. So one equation will be the number of games. And then the equation after that will be the volume. And so the collector's edition is a little bigger. First time you see one of these, it is confusing. I would agree. But they like to put one of these on every test. So it is sort of a comfort that the test is so predictable. The numbers on your test will be different, but the questions will pretty much follow the same plan. So see if you can pick the correct answer. Both of you got it. Yay! I'm excited. Okay, so we can conquer those 10 points. Okay, now Algebra Expressions. And I don't like to put much fluff in these packets, but you know how to only add like terms, right? And you also know how to distribute. And when you factor, you just factor out what's common to both and put it out front. So a little exercise here. I'd like you to just simplify these. It's just a litmus test of your algebra skill. So we're already done with 9 pages of this. So I'm assuming you're pretty much done. We're just going to go over them, and I'd like you to just check your own work. So the first one, we have 3 x's, a set of y's that are additive inverses. So this one is 3x minus y. The m's are additive inverses, so are the m's. So minus 1n and 6n would be 5n. So here we have 4xy minus 7xy. This can be in any order, so you should have arrived at negative 3xy plus 2y minus 10x. This one you have to distribute the 2, and this is where they try to catch you, distributing this negative. So it should be 6a minus 10b minus 6a plus 3b. So the a's are additive inverses, and you have a negative 10b plus 3b, which is a negative 7b. This last one, you don't have to distribute anything to the 6x, but then you have to distribute minus 4y plus 8x. So they always try to catch you on the minus to minus thing. Plus 9x minus 27y. So you're going to add up negative 31y plus 23x. or 23x minus 31y. Either order is correct. Now, you won't have to do anything like this on the test. We're just sort of polishing up your math skills. So, when you factor, I always break it into its prime. This will be at the end of the test. Often they test you on factoring at the very last couple questions. So here we have 2xx, 2 times 3x, 2 times 4. We can take out the 2's, that's all. We would have 2 out front, x squared plus 3x plus 4. And then we could distribute it, and we should get back what we factored. This next one, 3 5xy plus 2 3xxy minus 3x. So we can take out a 3 and an x, bring it out front, and we're left with 5y plus 2xy plus 1 to hold the place. So that's just a review of simplifying and combining like terms. You girls seem very astute in math, so not to worry. Okay, this is pretty easy. We just combine the x's, bring them over to one side. So let's look at, our examples are always in gray. Let's look at number 1. So we have to notice the prompt. I just sort of suggest that you train yourself to circle the prompt, because a lot of people will just get X, but they are nasty and they often make the prompt something different. So here, pretty easy. We'll just subtract the 4. So X is a half, put it back in. So that'll be 3 minus 4, which is a minus 1. Okay, this one. So I'm trying to anticipate anything you might have on the test. So here, what about this? So we have 7x. We're going to subtract the 3 from both sides. That would give us 5. Now, what should we do at this point? Well, we can put the 5 over 1 and just cross multiply. So that would give us 5x is 7. X is 7/5. Thank you, College Board, for 10 points. I was going to put that on our tombstone, but my husband just already got them, and it says trust in the Lord. Or I was going to put on there, just pick a number. So look at this prompt, n minus 4. So n plus 7 is 2. So let's see what n is. N is a negative 5. We don't want the answer we think we want. So we're going to put in minus 5 minus 4. So negative 9, so that one is A. Again, they're nasty, and often the prompt will not be what you expect it to be. So this one is just X, so we have to distribute here. So let's try it. 12 minus 3x plus 6 equals x plus 8. So we'll add 3x to both sides. Not too bad, right? 12 plus 6 is 18 minus 8 is 10. Then I just divide by 4. My answer isn't there, but I don't panic. I just reduce it and I get 5 halves. We're starting slow. We're going to get to some harder ones in a minute. Okay, let's translate this. 3 more than y is 2 less than 8, so that would be 6. If it said 2 less 8, that would be a negative 6, but it's saying 2 less than 8, so pretty easy. Y is just 3. So let's come to 6. So what I could do is 2 things. I could cross multiply this. So let's try this. And that's the whole purpose of the practice test. It's not official anything. It's just to give you a chance to see how you do. So this would be 7x equals, all I did here, wait a minute, I'm subtracting 5x plus 10, subtract the 5x, so I would have 2x is 10, so x is 5. And the other way I could have done it as a strategy is if I fly like an eagle above the problem, I could see that when I put in the answers that 5 and putting in 5 here works perfectly. Okay, this next one is the hardest one on a no calculator section because they're hoping you'll make a mistake. So let's try it together, and you can just work ahead of me if you'd like. So I'm going to distribute that 6. And then I have to distribute a -1, and that's where they hope I make a mistake. So this would equal and now I could just cross multiply. I'm sorry, my numbers are a little messy. This tablet is totally vertical, and so it's hard to do it. So you won't get anyone harder than this on the no calculator as far as algebra goes. So what I'm going to do here is subtract the 18. And that'll give me 26. Subtract the 4x. Last step, divide by 32. And I should get, dividing by 2, I should get 13 over 16, which is answer choice B. And that's about as hard as it gets. Okay, let's look at linear equations in 2 variables. So this might provide some consternation, but we want to show you how to do it, and it's sort of flying like an eagle above the problem. So if I have 1/5 x plus 1/4 y is 8, I want to try to get 4x plus 5y. And I might not, how do I get x and y, I might say. But look, we just have to see, what did I have to multiply by this to get 4x? I had to multiply by 20. So 8 times 20 is 160. Hopefully that's okay. So let's try this one. We did one a little bit like this. So we have 1/2 of an x and 1/3 of a y. So I'm trying to get 3x plus 2y. So I have to multiply by 6, right? Because 6 times 1/2 would give me 3. 1/3 times x would give me 2. So 8 times 6 is 48. So hopefully that's okay. Okay, I'm going to have you try this one. So we want to get 8m plus 2k. Just see what you have to multiply by and put your answer in the chat room. And again, you might not have seen ones like this in your math class. And that's the whole purpose to do it here. Good girls. So all we are doing is multiplying by 2, multiplying by 2. So 2 times 2 on this planet is 4. And so you can see it's just getting used to their kinds of problems. So let's go on to the next page, which isn't too bad because this time we're dividing. We're dividing by 2. To get 3x, I divide by 2. I divide this by 2. So 4k divided by 2 would just give me 2k. Whoops. Okay, so let's try this one. We might just go a tiny bit over. We'll see. We want to get 3x plus 1, so we're dividing by 3. So 30 divided by 3 would just be 10. This one, I'm dividing everything by 12. It's pretty hard to see with the x, but in 168 divided by 12 would just be 14. Thank you, College Board, for 10 points. This one, I'm just dividing by 10. And 52 divided by 10 would just be 5.2. Okay, the next one, remember we did that very hard problem. Hopefully there's no questions, but if there is, just put it in the chat room. Okay, so we did that really hard one. So we're trying to solve for L, and so if we're trying to solve for L, we would subtract 2w and then divide everything by 2. So this first one isn't so bad. So a plus b is 12. So we have 12c is 36. We're going to divide by 12. And so c is just going to be 3. Okay, so these are a little bit hard. Let's try 4 first. We are going to also try a book one here. I think we're almost done. We only have 2 pages left. Okay. Whoops. These can be tricky, as you saw with the okay. So let's go to 4 first. And I'm going to push you a bit with these. So we're trying to get the p to stand alone. So let's subtract 6 from both sides. This would be a hard one. Okay, now I'm trying to get p to stand alone. So I'm going to factor out a p. Bring it up front, and then I'll have left 5q minus 5r plus 1 to hold the place. And so for that hard one, that's a negative sign. I'll just divide by this 5q minus 5r plus 1. And that answer minus 5 is C. Okay, a little tricky. I agree. So let's go up here. Distinct on the SAT means different. So I want to get X, and they always say in terms of just cross that off. So I'm going to multiply both sides by, I know this is hard. You'll get one of these. It might be easy, but it might be hard. I don't know. So we're going to distribute the b. But I did tell you that you can get the whole October test back. So I want to get the x. So I want to get all the x's on one side. So I'm going to add a by and put that on this side. And then subtract an xy and put it on this side. Whoops. And so now I can factor out the x because I have all of them on one side. And then I divide by b minus y, and I would get answer choice A. If you see 2, just put that in the chat room. I'll go over it again if I need to, because that was a hard one, and I don't want to go too fast. So first I distributed the b, then I got all the x's on one side and all the other variables on the other side, and then I factored out the x. This is super hard. So if you want me to do it again, I would just put a question mark. I would be happy to. We're almost done. I have to stretch you with the math. And okay, so Margot's okay. But it is hard. Sophia, how are you? It is quite hard. I had to distribute the b and then take all the x's on one side. Okay, so Sophia's great. Okay, let's try 3 and then a book problem. So with this one, we cross off the in terms of x. We're just trying to get y to stand alone. So we could put this over 1 and just cross multiply. That'll give me x. We're just polishing up your math skills. Okay, we want to get the y to stand alone, so we'll subtract the x. Divide by x. And I might panic because my answer isn't here, but it might be here in another form. Could I pick a number? Sure. So this would actually be 1 over x minus x over x, which would be 1 over x minus 1, which would be C. I did have a class, I'm going to do this in black, where I said the question was, the easy way to do this one is just to interchange these. So basically you can just say y plus 1 equals 1 over x and subtract the 1. And I said to the one student who was Chinese, I said, you probably learned that, and he said in 2nd grade. So it's totally doable to just change these two values. So I hope you're okay. If you have a question, just put it in the chat room. And we're almost done. But I'd like you to try a hard book one. We might go a couple minutes over. So the hard book, but not very much. I'd like you to go to page 1127, number 13. because I can tell you girls both are wanting a high math score. So this is a hard one. You have to work it a bit. See if you can attack it. It is hard because it's a number 13. Probably on a no calculator. I don't know. Here, let's look. And like I said, we use the book because these questions are, and you get one of these. This is a pretty hard one. So we have H, maybe we could do this together, minus 16t squared plus vt plus k. Okay, what I have to do is get the v to stand alone. Just cross off that in terms of, that's just there to confuse you. So we want to get the v to stand alone. So let's add 16t squared to both sides and subtract a k. Okay, so now I want to get v to stand alone, so all I have to do is divide everything by t. But that is not an answer choice. So what they did was they took h minus k over t plus 16tt over t. And so our answer is going to be h minus k over t plus 16t, which is answer choice D. So I'm going to let you look at that hard one. And if you see 13, just put C13 in the chat room. If you don't, I'll go over it again. We're trying to get, this is, you get one of these on every test. This is actually a hard one. And you can see we have that zeros right above it. It's a number 12. But if you see 13, but I expect you would have a question with it. We're trying to get the velocity by itself. So this is a hard one, but you might get an easy one on test day. Okay, so Sophia's okay. I trust you're good. Okay, that's about as hard as it gets. And Margot's good. Okay, let's go back to the packet. This one is a candidate for picking numbers. So what if I got this? X over y is k. We'll do it both ways. So remember, I can go in the math door, or I could go in the strategy door. Spelled strategy around. So we're going to just pick a number. So let's make it easy on ourselves. Let's say x is 6, y is 3, and 6 over 3, k is 2. So I just have to get x plus y, which is 9 over 6, which would be, dividing by 3 halves. So we want an answer that will equal 3 halves. So this one would be 1 over 2. Nope. Let's try B. 3 over 2. Thank you, College Board, for 10 points. Now, if I didn't pick numbers very quickly, I would have to do a strategy. I want to get x plus y over x, where k is x over y. So that would be x over x plus y over x. And so that would be 1 plus, but y over x is 1 over x over y. So this gets confusing because I have to divide this. And so basically I would have x over y is k, so this is 1 over k. So now I would just do k1, which is k over k plus 1 over k, which would give us k plus 1 over k. So I get the same answer, but do you see picking numbers is a really good method. Now the rest of this stuff is pretty easy. So we just want to know you got your symbols down. When the bar is shown here, it's equal to. So if we do this one, it's going to be an open circle. Just want to be sure you don't miss this. So we'll divide by 40. X is greater than negative 3/4. So x is greater than minus 0.75, but it's an open circle, which would be A. Okay. They sometimes do this. X is 2, so we're going to put 2 in for x. So we'll get y plus 8 is less than 12. So y is less than 4. I could put in, I had to get positive, 1, 2, or 3, but don't put them all in. Just pick one value. So sometimes there's 2 or 3 values that work. So we're almost done. So here I'm subtracting 18, but remember, if you divide by a negative, I'm just polishing up your math, you have to flip the sign. So this will be P is less than 2. Thank you, College Board, for 10 points. Okay, this one I would multiply both sides by 2. If I'm going too fast, just I'm looking at the chat room. Hopefully I'm not. Subtract 15. Negative 3x is less than 9. So x is greater than a minus 3. I do have to flip the sign. So that one would be A. Just 4 minutes over. We're okay. We can do a couple problems. I apologize. Usually I'm right on time. So this is another strategy. Use the choices. 2 over x is greater than 3. Which of the following intervals does x work? So the only way to do it is to try the choices. I know I can't have a negative number because there's no way that a negative number here is going to be greater than 3. So if I pick a number in between 1/4 of a pi and 1/2 of a pi, 1/3 of a pi would work. So let's try it. Is 2 over 1/3 greater than 3? And remember, when we divide fractions, we have to flip the second number. I'm just doing a lot of math, polishing up your math. Is 6 bigger than 3? Yes. So that one is C. So our last page, yay. I don't know if you've ever done these, but compound inequalities, whoops, it's totally legal. Do whatever thing you do in the middle to do on both sides. So I'm going to do this one. So I'm going to subtract 6 from everything. So that'll give me minus 10 is less than a minus 2x, which is less than a minus 5 1/4. Then I divide by minus 2, but what has to happen? All the signs are going to flip. I'll get 5 is greater than x is greater than negative 21/4. Oh, I'm dividing by, so that'll be positive. So that pretty much means that x could be 4. So I'd like you to try this one. It's our last problem, then we can sign off. Sorry I went a few minutes over. And again, I'll see you girls on Tuesday night. There might be more people joining the online, I don't know. But this is a nice friendly group. So try this one. You're going to subtract 3 from everything. but then you have to divide by a negative and switch the sign. So try that quickly, and we'll sign off when you're done, when we go over it. Just put your answer in the chat room. Jim's watching. So. Okay, so we're going to get -7 is less than minus x is less than 6. But I'm dividing everything by a -1. Have to flip the sign, so that'll be 7 is greater than x, which is greater than a -6, which is...
Positive 6, right? Can you flip the sign? Or... No, I'm confused.
Okay, wait a second. I think that's right. Look at your answer choice. Hold on, guys.
Yeah, I think it's B.
So it's...
Oh, I missed that sign then, yeah.
Okay, everybody's... It's actually B. So the first thing I'm doing is subtracting the 3. That'll give me this one. So I'll get -7 is less than a -x is less than 6. I have to divide everything by a -1. So I have to flip all the signs. And that will give me B. So, hooray, we did it. So you're on your way to a great SAT score. It was good meeting you. If you see that it's B, just say, I see it's B. Catch your mistake now, and we're signing off. So thank you so much, girls.
Tuesday, right?
Yeah, Tuesday at 5:30. If you have a question on this, just put a question by your name. So all we're doing is subtracting the 3. We make all our mistakes here. Okay, great, Margot. And so we'll see you at 5:30 on Tuesday evening. Okay, Sophia, thank you, honey. I hope this wasn't too bad. All right, see you, girls.